In this video, I'm going to share 10 techniques that I use when developing my bonsai nabari. The purpose of this is to help you achieve this result and understand how to get there. I am by no means claiming these are the only or even the best methods out there, but they are some of my personal favorites and I hope they can be of some help to you. First up is a summary table so you can quickly grasp the key points about each technique. Then we'll dive into each one. Here we go. Starting with number 1, summary table. This is a quick way to visualize what we're getting at with each technique. If you find this helpful, let me know down below. Coming in at number 2, root pruning or repotting. When you prune the roots, you redirect the plant's energy towards the lateral roots instead of the primary root. This gives you a more extensive network of fine feeder roots, which can lead to increased branching. Now, depending on your goal, you might want your tree to be more upright. In that case, you would prune off the majority of the lateral roots. Or if you want a wider nabari, then you would keep most of those lateral roots and just chop the top root. But before you run off to grab your pruners, I should mention that root pruning works best on young trees with smaller root balls. It's not impossible to do it with larger trees. You just need to take a little bit more care to ensure the tree survives the process. As always, take care of your tools and disinfect them before and after use. Use sharp pruners and make clean cuts to minimize damage to the roots. I usually take 1/3 of the roots each year so I don't shock the tree too much. But you'll have to assess your own tree and decide what is appropriate for it. I also recommend keeping the tree in a shady area for a couple weeks while it adjusts to its new pot. At No. 3, we have tourniquet air layering. With this method, you place the wire above the air layer, and once it starts rooting, the new roots will grow around the wire. So since the wire is in contact with the trunk, it helps guide the roots to where you want them to go. The downside to this method is that the wire can dig into the trunk, causing damage or callus formation. To avoid this, you can pad the wire with something like rubber or cloth. Personally, I prefer to use cloth because it is more flexible and conforms better to the shape of the tree. I also find that tourniquet air layering is great for creating roots above an old branch attachment point. If you're wondering why I air layer instead of just grafting, it's because air layering is a lot quicker and easier than grafting. And the best part is that both methods can be used together. So start with the air layer to get the roots flowing and then add a graft to fill in the canopy. Now, unlike the previous technique, this method works great on larger trees with thicker trunks. And speaking of thicker trunks, our next technique works well for that too, coming in at No. 4, ring air layering. By removing a ring of bark, you stimulate the formation of new roots. The advantage of this technique is that it is excellent for trees with a thick trunk because you can remove a big chunk of bark and still get plenty of roots. On the flip side, this method is a little bit tricky because you have to be careful not to cut too deeply and damage the phloem. If you do, your tree might end up brittling and dying. To prevent this, I usually make multiple shallow cuts and then connect them all together. That way I don't cut too deeply in any one spot. After making the cuts, you'll notice that the bark is still attached. So to get rid of this, I like to use a flathead screwdriver to gently pry it away from the trunk. Once that's done, you can either leave the wound open or cover it with grafting wax. Personally, I prefer to leave it open because I found it gets more roots that way. Also, it's very important to water the tree deeply after doing this. And another thing, this method works best on mature trees. If you try it on a young tree with thin bark, it's very easy to cut too deeply. If you thought the last technique was easier, stick around because we have an even simpler one coming up. At No. 5, the board technique. With this technique, you simply place the board on top of the tree and weight it down with something like a rock. Over time, the tree's roots will grow sideways along the board. Now, if you're thinking, hey, that sounds exactly like ring air layering, then you're absolutely right. In fact, you can think of the board technique as an extension of the ring air layering method. It's really up to you how many roots you get. If you're patient and leave it on for a few years, you'll get a really nice broad nabari. And if you're impatient like me, you can always just cut the roots off and put a fresh board on top. Another cool thing about this method is that you can use it to fix a narrow nabari. For example, if the roots are growing outwards but the tree is still leaning, you can use the board to gently nudge it back underneath the tree. Now, if you think this technique is too simple, I wouldn't blame you, but trust me, it's a lot more finicky than it looks. Up next at No. 6, we have approach grafting. With this technique, you simply take a rooted cutting and bury the bottom half in soil. Then you place the graft above an area of the trunk where you want roots to grow. As the roots grow towards the graft, you can bury them, and now you have new roots in exactly the spot you wanted. This technique is awesome for those pesky spots where the tree has no roots. It also works great on larger trees with thicker trunks because you don't have to worry about damaging the trunk during the approach graft. Just remember to keep the sign healthy so it can continue growing and providing energy for the root growth. But if you thought approach grafting was easy, we have another one coming up. In at number 7, post-air layer root care. When you first air layer a tree, the roots will emerge and grow down towards the soil. But if you leave them alone, they'll just end up buried and you won't see them. So to get them to grow up towards the soil surface, you can create a small mound around the trunk and leave the nabari just below the surface. Over time, the roots will emerge from the soil and form a nice nabari. Now, this method works best when combined with other techniques like ring air layering or the board technique. Speaking of which, this brings us to our next tip. In at No. 8, deadwood or Jin Shari Yarrow. By removing deadwood, you can enhance the age, drama, and overall character of your bonsai. So whether you have dead branches, exposed roots, or just a bunch of messy roots, you can turn them into attractive features. Now you might be asking yourself, is this even possible? Can dead stuff actually look good on a bonsai? Well, it can, and it often does. In fact, deadwood is one of the 5 classical signs of a well-grown bonsai, and you don't have to believe me. Take a look at some of the top bonsai in the world and you'll see what I mean. Many of them wouldn't be nearly as appealing without the deadwood. Now, there's a lot more to Jin Shari and Yarrow that I could talk about, but that's for another video. For now, just remember that deadwood can add a lot of character to your bonsai. Now, here's a bonus tip for you. If you made it this far, then you deserve it. The 9th technique isn't necessarily for developing the nabari, but it is for developing the tree as a whole. It's called branch wrapping. It's quite simple. You wrap the branches with soft material like cloth or raffia and secure it with string or tape. The benefit of this is that it keeps the branches from rubbing against each other as the tree grows. Now you might be wondering why not just prune the branches so they don't touch? Well, sometimes you want to keep those branches because they can form a nice canopy or add balance to the tree. Alright, so here we are at number 10. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. It's number 10. What? No, there's no number 10. I didn't include one because there are so many other techniques out there that I haven't covered yet. So instead of giving you a lame number 10, I'm gonna challenge you to find and learn a new technique. Share it with us in the comments. Who knows? We might even feature some of them in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. If you did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. Alright, until next time, happy bonsaiing.